Imagine being the greatest fighter to ever exist, uniting all the realms and defeating the greatest threat in Mortal Kombat history, only then to get dunked on by a celebrity's daughter who spends her free time taking selfies. Yeah, Shujinko has it rough. In fact, I would argue that Shujinko is the most underrated hero in the entire series. The man was literally the main character of an entire game, and yet a lot of the fan base wants to pretend that he never existed. Which is really sad, honestly, when you consider how much the character sacrificed to save the realms. When you Google unrequited love, it should just be a picture of Shujinko, because the man suffered for your sins and nobody loves him back. Now, I'm not saying Shujinko is hated, don't get it twisted, but I am saying people are indifferent towards him, which honestly could be worse depending on how you look at it. Nobody really hates him, but no one talks about him either, so in a way, he's less popular than the hated characters. And is that lack of popularity deserved? Well, let's talk about it today. And I want to begin by hyping Shujinko up, starting off from the very beginning. Keep in mind that this man was trained by the same master as Liu Kang and Kung Lao only many years beforehand. So yeah, this guy's an incredible fighter in his own right, but then on top of that, the man straight up has an X-Men power. That's right, your boy Shujinko has a mutant ability. He can instantly mimic any combat techniques that he sees. Or in other words, if Ermac does the telekinetic lift and Shujinko sees it, he can copy that and then do that move himself. Which in hindsight is very similar to Shang Tsung, only he doesn't have to steal your soul. He can just see you do the move and then he can replicate it. And here I thought Goku was the best example of that. He copied the solar flare, he copied the Kamehameha, he copied the spirit bomb. Shujinko really is Goku in a sense. Not just because he copies everybody's attacks, but because he also spent his entire life learning from the great masters throughout all the different realms. This man's life story pretty much is an anime, and I'm not kidding. There's an entire mode in Deception called Conquest Mode where you play as Shujinko throughout his entire life. And again, I'm not kidding. You start off when he's like a teenager, and then the campaign ends when he's a really old man, complete with Fu Manchu. And during this anime arc, Shujinko does a lot of different errands for different people, completes a bunch of different tasks, and more importantly goes to all the different realms. And guess who he meets while exploring these many different realms? Only the best fighters they have. Yeah, seriously, he learns under the best fighters in every single realm, and guess what his power is? Don't forget. That's right, he can copy your moves after you teach them to him. So put simply, Shujinko now knows the abilities of all the strongest fighters in all the different realms. Yeah, this man is an absolute unit, and if you don't believe me, he solos Scorpion. Alright, and at this point, Scorpion was a champion of the Elder Gods, and the guy still got bodied. The Elder Gods don't just pick anybody to be their champion, they look for the strongest guy they can find, and that was Scorpion, and he still got bodied by Shujinko. That's how strong his power level is. And real quick, I want you to look at Shujinko right now. Is he young? Is he in his prime? No, he's super old, and he still dunked on Scorpion. You can't tell me that man's back wasn't hurting, that his knees weren't aching, his bones about to give out, and he still defeated this firebending ninja from hell. No matter how boring or dull you may think Shujinko is, you have to recognize one thing. The man is strong. He fought off an entire horde of Baraka's army. He helped Sindel thwart Shao Kahn's invasion for a short time period. He defeated Monster, that weird character that was a stand-in for Scorpion, because originally that was going to be Scorpion, but for some reason the devs changed it to a new character named Monster. Throughout the course of his life, Shujinko either defeated or survived against the strongest fighters in all of Mortal Kombat history. Just don't forget that, okay? The man's an absolute unit. And if you don't believe me, then just ask the Dragon King Onaga himself, because he's dead. Yeah, guess who defeated your boy? This old man with the Fu Manchu with the achy bones and arthritis in his fingers. Though to be fair, it was a group effort because Shujinko took the combined powers and abilities of all the strongest fighters and used that to kill Onaga. But guess what? Only Shujinko is capable of doing that because, once again, his power is to absorb your abilities. Liu Kang can't do that, Scorpion can't do that, Taven can't do that, only Shujinko could have defeated the Dragon King Onaga. And I can already predict the comment section. I can hear you typing away right now on your keyboard. Well, Underdog, he's the one who released the Dragon King. Not true. Not true. That was Reptile. Reptile is the reason Onaga is alive again. That was not Shujinko. My boy Shujinko did not revive the Dragon King, so stop slandering his name. Though to be fair, he's not innocent because what he did do is spend most of his life collecting the Kami Dogu for the Dragon King. He didn't know it was the Dragon King at the time, to be fair. He thought it was like a champion of the Elder Gods named Damashi, this little spirit orb thing looking like the fairy from Legend of Zelda. I can't unsee that. Every time I see Damashi, I just think, look, listen, like every single time. It just cracks me up how similar it is to Legend of Zelda. The man's even going around opening chests, completing side quests and all that stuff. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. My point is, yes, Shujinko did make a big mistake by giving most of the Kami Dogu to the Dragon King, but guess what? He didn't give all of them. It's actually Quan Chi's fault that Onaga finally got the last Kami Dogu, and guess what? It's the Deadly Alliance fault for rebuilding the entire immortal army of the Dragon King. Yeah, they did that themselves. Even though Onaga is pretty much invincible at this point, he still would have had to rebuild the entire army himself one by one, and it would have taken a really long time. But thankfully, he don't gotta worry about it because the Deadly Alliance already did it for him and also handed over the final Kamidogu. And honestly, since we're already playing the blame game, isn't it pretty much every hero's fault for taking L's to the Deadly Alliance and not stopping them before they completed the immortal undead army of the Dragon King? Listen, I'm just saying, Shujinko is not the only person to blame for all this nonsense. It was a perfect storm of mistakes and bad decisions. And listen, okay, everybody makes mistakes. Don't forget how many times that Raiden's fumbled the bag. Yeah, he's been the reason bad guys succeed multiple times. He almost handed everybody's cheeks to Shao Kahn at the end of Mortal Kombat 9, but thank God the Elder Gods came in there with the backup. In fact, even Sub-Zero, my favorite character, has jeopardized the realms multiple times, and don't forget Scorpion in Mortal Kombat X. He freed Shinnok. Now once again, it was on accident, but he's the reason the main bad guy got free. It's all his fault. I'm just saying, the hatred towards Shujinko is completely unfair. Okay, because every hero in the game has fumbled the bag at some point. Okay, but now comes the funniest part of the video, because even though I've spent all this time hyping Shujinko up, now I'm gonna take a big crap on him, because there are reasons a lot of people make fun of this character and call him a failure, yada yada yada. So for starters, Shujinko is a massive tool. He does pretty much what anybody tells him to, and he's extremely gullible. I already mentioned the Kamidogu nonsense and making the Dragon King almost unkillable, but then on top of that, he also handled a secret mission from Katana, and I'm doing finger quotes because it was Melina in disguise, which is honestly hysterical because even though Melina is supposed to look identical to Katana, I think Shujinko is the only character who's actually fallen for it when she pretends to be Katana. I can honestly only think of 2 times that's happened. Once in Mortal Kombat 9 with Smoke, and then Shujinko in Deception. Those are the only 2 people I've seen actually be tricked by Melina. But let's keep going because there's way more funny stuff to talk about, like him getting captured in Armageddon. Yeah, he's no longer the main character in Armageddon and even got captured off screen. Now thankfully Taven was there to bail him out, and according to Shujinko, he actually got captured on purpose, that way he would be behind enemy lines, but I think he might just be covering for his failure. Because that's not Shujinko's first time behind bars. In fact, in case you're wondering why he's so old, it's because he spent a huge chunk of his life imprisoned in the Order Realm. Yeah, I'm not kidding. That's the lamest reason anybody would get old, but it's the actual lore behind why he's that old. So you know what? I'm convinced that if Taven had not come around to free Shujinko, he would have stayed in that cell until he died, because he didn't have many years left. And unfortunately, I think Shujinko's appearance is one more reason he's not popular. He's competing with ninjas and demons and dragon people and vampires and cyborgs, and here he is just an old guy. And then on top of that, his drip is severely lacking. Come on, dude, brown. Desaturated brown, the most boring color scheme possible. What are you doing? You're not trimmer. You can't pull off brown. Part of me wonders if Shujinko would have been more popular if his outfit was just better. I still like him being an old guy, although he's just way too nice, and I don't think nice guys are in anymore. If Shujinko comes back, I want him to troll the heroes with how skilled he is compared to them, because that's when old kung fu masters are the best, right? When they're trolling and messing with people. I want to see Shujinko clowning on the other heroes and villains from the series and maybe even roasting them a little bit. I think if he was a bit sassy, he'd be more popular. But maybe I'm just biased because MKX Liu Kang is my favorite Liu Kang. Not the demon version, but the human version that's not canon. And I love him because he's constantly roasting people and insulting them, and even when he compliments them, it's like a backhanded insult, and I just love that. Because keep in mind, Liu Kang is the greatest fighter there is, so the fact that he's roasting people just makes perfect sense to me, because their lack of ability is hilarious to him. It's not a threat. Even when you win a round against Liu Kang, his animation is to get back up, laugh, and wag his finger at you because he knows you're not getting a second round. That's my favorite Liu Kang, and I think if Shujinko borrowed some of that energy, some of that cockiness, trolly nature, it would just be great and make him a very unique and lovable character. Although in saying that, maybe he would be too similar to Johnny Cage. He'd just be trash talking people and clowning on him, but he has the skill to back it up, so I think it would make him unique. Oh boy, but now comes the sad part, the downfall of Shujinko, and it took place over several games and even the comics. So first up we have Armageddon, and I wish I could say that Shujinko had a happy ending, but it's simply not the case. We know for a fact that he died. However, the game never tells us who killed him. I'm assuming it's Mocap. I think Mocap did him in. And then next up we have the Mortal Kombat X comics, which to my surprise had a cameo from Shujinko, and he's not just in the background, he's up front and center talking to all the heroes and even moving the plot forward. However, my happiness was short-lived because it turns out he's being mind controlled by Havoc the entire time and pretty much just a puppet. He's a pawn for the bad guys, which was upsetting but also not out of character because, as mentioned earlier, he's extremely gullible and always a pawn in somebody's plans and always a yes man too. So unfortunately, it kind of makes sense that he would be manipulated and used like this. The Kamidogu was how he was mind controlled, by the way, which is very powerful. Everyone succumbs to it. And worst of all, Havoc is the one controlling him, and they were bros in Deception. They were straight up bros. I love Havoc in that game. Why is he doing Shujinko dirty? That's your friend. But then finally, we have the absolute worst point in this man's entire career as a Mortal Kombat character, getting defeated in Cassie Cage's arcade ending, and it wasn't even close. This man was dunked on, given swirlies, shoved in the locker, defeated by Cassie Cage like it wasn't even difficult. And you might be wondering, why is Cassie Cage beating up on Shujinko? I thought they were both good guys. Why is she beating up this old man? Well, get this. Because he looks too close to Shang Tsung. Yeah, that's ironic. In fact, it's poetic irony in its purest form. Because guess who Shujinko's wanted to defeat ever since he was a little kid? Yeah, Shang Tsung. Shujinko got bodied by a millennial taking selfie. Why? Because he looked too similar to the man he hates the most. That's rough, man. That's gotta be one of the roughest endings to someone's career I've ever seen. And yes, I know that arcade endings are not often canon, but even so, this shows how little respect the new writers have for Shujinko. I mean, come on, you could have at least made the fight close. Let him get some hits in, have Cassie Cage walking away barely victorious, but nah, she clowned on him. But honestly, I can't be too hard on Cassie Cage because Shujinko's power is also very similar to Shang Tsung. He copies your abilities and even transforms into the opponent. And since Shujinko was treated so dirty, I doubt he's ever going to come back, especially since the original Dragon King arc happened in the comics but then got cancelled. Or in other words, Onaga showed back up and got defeated all before the events of Mortal Kombat 11. That was the intended story from the writers, but then the comics got canceled for a reason that I can't figure out. So once again, Shujinko is likely not going to come back, but let me know in the comments section, do you want Shujinko to make a return in Mortal Kombat 12? I hope you enjoyed this video because it's pretty much about over. If you did, please leave a like down below, it helps my channel out a ton. Then keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell, that way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.